So just a little background about myself. I grew up in Portland, Maine, most of my life, and went to college in Maryland, met my wife there. And that's how I ended up in the mid-Atlantic, what could be permanently. And my background is in finance. And so I started off in retail banking and then brokerage at TD Ameritrade, and then asset management, Merrill Lynch and T. Rowe Price. And I've always been entrepreneurial, so I wanted a side business, and I thought that that would kind of scratch that itch while I continued my career in finance. And so I was really interested in businesses that I felt I could continue while I was running or having my career in finance. And so I was looking at businesses that I thought would not be at risk if a key employee were to quit or to get sick and require owner to step in and actually run the shop. And so for me, the quick lube space was that, because the managers typically have 2 days off a week, and one of those days, the employees run the business and there's continuity. So I felt as though the quick lube space was a good place to start. And I took over a shop in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I kept my job at T. Rowe Price for a short period of time before jumping into the business full time. And then I kind of imposed my will on the industry and the shortfalls that I felt the industry had. I spent a lot of time at my desk at T. Rowe Price reading Yelp reviews, trying to figure out, okay, what are the complaints that consumers having? Where can this get better? And so it took, it didn't take a lot of time for the Harrisburg store to turn around. It was in a decline. The owners were checked out. It was an older couple. They really weren't paying much attention to the business anymore. And the sales were on a steady decline while the rest of the industry was on an incline. And so I took it over, changed a lot of the procedures around, kind of implemented the things that I thought should be done, and we saw some success. So I opened a second store in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, which is a small town in Pennsylvania, basically to reaffirm the model. And then the third location was in a suburb of Chicago called Mount Prospect. And that kind of validated the model completely, because it's so far away that, the procedures that we put in place basically meant that this would be run absentee. And so that store is one of our more successful stores, and we've had it now for 6-7 years. And when we got to location number 10, I started thinking to myself, okay, we've got something here. We've got a model that can be replicated. I think that our model is what's going to be the succession to the quick lube industry, because some of the larger players in our space are moving towards a more multi-care route of doing all these other services that are not oil change related. And I don't think that's what the consumer wants. And so we designed a building that allows for the operator to have minimal overhead. And in terms of the building improvements lease and the actual cost and overhead of the service itself. And because of that, we can perform the oil change only model, which is our North Star. It's basically a core tenet of our business, is we believe that the consumer wants an oil change only experience. And we've built the model around that. So long story short, we started franchising in April of 2021. The model has resonated. We've sold a lot of territories and we've had a lot of success. And I think it's because the model resonates. And the stores are starting to open now, and we're seeing a lot of success there. And our franchisees are slowly but surely rolling out their buildings, whether it's construction or conversions. And we're hoping that if we execute on scaling, that we can be the top of mind brand when it comes to the fast oil change, and start having that national presence that allows people that when they think, I want a fast oil change, I don't want to worry about tires, brakes, inspections, things like that. We're going to go to Costa Oil because we know we're going to get in, get out, regardless of if the line is a couple cars deep. So that's the real quick version. I gave you probably the quickest version I've ever done this call. But you're going to be able to ask as many questions as you want.
Nah, it's fantastic. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. What market are you in, Mike?
So I am in Lancaster, PA, about an hour from Hanover.
Okay.
I was in Hanover this past weekend for my son's baseball tournament, so I saw one of the stores out there. So I'm real close.
The York Street one?
So, you know what? I don't know my Hanover geography very well, so
yeah. red brick building.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it looked great. So I also have a finance background and morphed into kind of an operations guy over a 13-year career in the trash industry. Left that about 3 years ago, and so for the last 3 years, I own a Amazon delivery company. So I have 40 vans and way too many employees and everything that goes along with that. But similar to you, entrepreneurially, I like being my own boss. I can't see going back to being a W-2 guy again. So Amazon is running fine. Looking for the next opportunity, probably something that would be a good semi-absent opportunity. Certainly once it's up and running. And after talking to Sierra, this sounds absolutely perfect.
We have 2 other franchisees that have Amazon routes. One in Toledo and one in Nashville.
Okay.
And you guys all express the same concerns that a lot of industries, it's not unique to Amazon, but you guys are under a unique kind of pressure because of Amazon's status and their ability to kind of dictate things and just the employment, the employment atmosphere right now is not great for Amazon driving companies. And we buy so much stuff from Prime, and we've had trees run over by drivers, and it's like,
yep. No, and it's I mean, you think of any business, it's not a great business, the seat that I'm sitting in, having one gigantic customer. So, some days we feel more like employees than business owners, but we still have a lot of freedom. So it's definitely kind of the best of both worlds. I always say this, transitioning from the big corporate job to the Amazon thing, is like a baby step towards.
Yeah, it's a good middle ground. So,
exactly
a lot of the Utz chips obviously is based out of Hanover, and they use that kind of bread route model where you can buy an Utz chip route and be your own boss. But I guess they are going through something similar where Utz is, I think it's kind of more the opposite, where Amazon is trying to become more controlling, whereas Utz has kicked their drivers off of a group healthcare plan, and they're trying to make the drivers really independent, basically responsible for everything. So it's kind of the inverse, but it's something that a lot of different businesses are working with. It's just labor in general, the past year and a half, 2 years has been extremely difficult, no matter what you're in. If you are in a non-skilled labor business, it's just been really tough to have to compete with sheets for employees is
right.
It's not ideal.
No. I mean, this is the Amazon gig. Is a very physically demanding job. It's a hard job. So you hire people. You can interview them all day long, but you don't really know if it's going to work out. So you put them in a van with 250 packages and send them out for 10 hours and in the dark and all the challenges that come with it, and see how they do.
Yeah, my driveway's 300 yards long, and we're in I actually live in Westminster, Maryland, not Pennsylvania. And I had to tow the Amazon guy out of our driveway. He came down last winter and got stuck. He went off into the mud and just spun his tires and tore, he got stuck, and I got my tractor out and pulled him all the way to the top of my driveway. And he was he was so embarrassed, but I was like, don't worry about it, man. It's a tough job. I feel for you. This is not I don't envy you.
Yeah. No, it's for, and some of these folks, I mean, they're 21. You got to be 21. So they're 21, 22, 23. Haven't even been driving very long, let alone a big van. And then we're sticking them in places where these big vans, in a lot of cases, shouldn't even go. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a big time challenge for them. So Costa Oil sound that I have right now, I probably have 65 employees, so I'm not looking to do that again with my next opportunity.
Yeah,
that is all I can handle employee wise. So what I was thinking was, so in between step here. So before I came to looking at different franchises and Costa Oil, I have been working with a mechanic who's become a friend who has been working on my Amazon vans for the last 3 years. So we've kind of been for the last couple of years, oh man, it'd be great if we could have our own shop. So we had looked for the real estate, and we actually settled on a place. And it's a very long story, but we ended up losing the building in dramatic fashion kind of at the last minute. So he's kind of hung out to dry, like, hey, what are we doing next, Mike? He's a big time mechanic. So this isn't necessarily a good fit for him. But I have some ideas around that. But for me, I'm not married to this guy. He's not family or anything like that. So for me, I'm still kind of looking for like, what's that next good opportunity? And this being relative, a little bit less labor intensive, and I like just the process of it. So nope, we're not doing a lot of add-ons. We're just banging through oil changes and getting them done quickly, getting them done right, taking care of the customer, keeping it moving. I love that from just a management standpoint. And Sierra even said that there's some way to kind of manage activity on an app. So fantastic.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different factors that make our labor situation a little bit better than other business models. And what Jiffy Lube has seen by going into this route of doing all these other services, you're not going to be able to hire someone for $14 an hour that's going to competently be able to change your brakes and tires and do tune-ups and serpentine belts. Whereas I can teach basically anybody to do an oil change, and all I need them to have is good customer service skills. So and then added to that, there's a base level of connection to the topic, right? So most of my guys are car guys. And so it's not, I owned a pizzeria for a while. I use this example a lot, but like my line cooks in the pizzeria have no attachment to the job. It's just a job to them. They'll get a 25-cent raise from the pizzeria next door and they'll leave. Whereas in our business, these guys are excited to be working with cars. They're excited to get experience in the industry, and they're a little bit more sticky because a lot of these guys went to either a trade school or a community college. And so there's a little bit more stickiness without the downside of the incredibly high labor rate necessary for a full service mechanic. And so we don't hire full service mechanics often unless they want to be a manager and they value security over anything. One of the nice things about our business is, we do offer a lot of security because it's either an hourly or a salary job. If you work for a crappy business owner mechanic and he doesn't pull in business and you're on a flat rate and you're a percentage of the jobs and no jobs are coming in, that there's a lot, there's a lot of uncertainty with that. Whereas we pay our guys, whether one car comes in or 100 cars come in, our guys get paid. They know the role, they know the job, they know what's expected of them. And all we ask of them is to treat the customer as well. And so we have a little bit higher retention rate than a lot of the industry, and it's worked well for us. So the Pit Stop Quick Lube on Lincoln Highway, I tried to purchase that 3 or 4 years ago, and I don't know who's running it now, but they're not running it well. And so I'm hoping that becomes available soon, because it's actually, the building itself fits our model really well. Other than that, Lancaster is very Valvoline driven. There's 3 of them, I believe, on the outskirts. And 3 is probably more than Lancaster needs, in my opinion. And I think there's probably a Lancaster Jiffy Lube as well.
Yes.
But our model, if we went into a town like that, or like a Lidditz or like a Columbia, we would do really well, especially once people realized there's a better mousetrap. So that's something we've done really successfully in Central PA, is make people realize there is a better mousetrap. There is a really nice Quick Lube in Mount Joy that does a really good job. I think it might even be owner operated. But I think Lancaster is a market that we definitely want to be in. Plus, whoever goes into any of those markets that kind of are around our core market, which is Central PA, where we have a really good reputation, you're going to feel the benefits of that. Even though we're an emerging brand, it's one less barrier for someone in our market versus, opening a store in Mesa, Arizona.
Yeah. Yep. So has there been any interest in the Lancaster area before
We
this?
have, yeah, we have a franchisee who owns Downington.
Okay. Yeah. Kind of east. Okay.
Yeah. And he has looked in Lancaster, but had trouble finding some real estate that fit the model. I actually have not talked to, his name's Bob Stadel, really nice guy. I have not talked to him in a little bit though, so I will follow up with my team on where he's looking.
Yeah.
I would really like to go into Mannheim or Lidditz.
Yeah, I mean, you said Lidditz, but there's shopping center. I mean, if that's what we're looking at busy shopping centers where we can take up 8 parking spaces. Then, Lidditz, in Lancaster, there's like the brand new Belmont shopping center. I'm not sure you can find 8 spots there, but there's plenty of shopping centers, in great areas.
Yeah, it really just is about getting past the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of juice in these deals because we're looking for $1,500 a month leases. So the brokers who represent the properties often won't even present the offer to the owners of the building. Whenever I've directly talked to an owner of the building, they're like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Of course, that $1,500 a month pays the plowing and the landscaping for the entire plaza. But
right.
the broker, sometimes, because their commission is based off of a percentage of the deal, they'll often, just either drag their feet or not even present the offer. And so that is one headwind we have had is getting past those gatekeepers. But when we have been able to get past them, we've had a lot of success, especially because our master broker, a company called Morrow Hill, if you want to look them up, they're a tenant representation only firm, and they work with some of the biggest franchises in the country, and they do a great job.
I live in Strasburg, which is kind of southeast of Lancaster, near Willow Street. Willow Street's a little more populated and has a couple shopping centers, and they have a really lousy Jiffy Lube there. So if that's a good target area.
I don't shy away. Yeah, I don't shy away from going near Jiffy Lubes, because all that means to me is those people are educated on the service, and once they realize there's a better one, the conversion is that much easier. Whereas it's much more difficult to convert a do-it-yourselfer, and it's much more difficult to convert someone who goes to a mom and pop shop where they maybe have been going for a while and they just feel bad about stopping going there, even though it's not convenient. It's not convenient to get your oil change at one of these mom and pop repair shops, because they're usually only a couple bays. There's usually cars that are tying up the bay. They don't have service shuttle vehicles or courtesy vehicles. And so once we get past that barrier and people come through our store, if you read the reviews on either Hanover or any of the Central PA shops, it's very evident real quickly, especially when juxtaposed to pick any of the Valvolines or the Jiffy Lubes in the area. It's pretty easy to see the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jiffy Lube has been miserable for a while. Any location I go to is usually pretty dirty, and not so much a Jiffy anymore.
No, not anymore. They're doing way too much stuff.
Yeah. So a couple just kind of specifics, if I can. So how do you balance the flow of just customer flow? I would imagine like Saturdays it's jammed, and then you're sitting around with not much to do on other weekday times. How do you balance that flow?
Yeah, so Fridays and Saturdays are the 2 busiest days, and then Monday is the 3rd busiest, and then Tuesday through Thursday, is kind of market driven, but it's still steady. It's not like such a huge variation that it requires a massive overhaul of like staffing needs. We will base our staffing on what the numbers look like, because our main KPIs are car count, bay time, and ticket average. And so if you've got, I myself have done a 50 car day with just me and one other guy, because we have a flow chart that we've created that basically has created the ability for the service to be done so seamlessly that we don't have to overstaff like some of these Jiffy Lubes and have 10 guys where at any given time, 2 guys are working and everyone else is standing around. So, but on a Friday and a Saturday for pure, customer service reasons, we'll have 4 guys if it's going to be, 30 plus cars for the day. If we know that a store is averaging 30 plus cars on a Friday or a Saturday. And also our point of sale system allows us to see these trends. So if we know at Hanover from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. is the busiest hour on a Monday, Friday, and Saturday, we'll have a part-time guy be there 10 to 1 on those days. And that solves the problem. And that also allows for you to, we only want to have 3 full-time guys. We want to have a manager and we want to have 2 oil changers. And we would like to have them not have any overtime when possible. And we would like them to be open 6 days a week. We're typically not open on Sundays, except for a few of our bigger market stores like Harrisburg and Pittsburgh. So that, I don't think any of our franchisees are open on Sundays at the moment. None that I can think of off the top of my head, but it's not something that we restrict at the franchise level.
Understood. What drives that ticket average? You mentioned that as one of the KPMs.
So ticket average
generally doing the same service.
Yeah, ticket average can be driven by the wealth in the area. So Harrisburg is a little bit of a lower ticket average. There's a lot more kind of Buicks and maybe some Chryslers that don't take full synthetic oil. So full synthetic is $79.95, whereas a regular oil change is $39.95. And so Hanover, which is a wealthier area, their average ticket is $76 blended. And so it varies based on the market. If you're near like a Toyota dealership, the Toyotas all require a 0W20, which is a full synthetic oil change. So Dillsburg is a great example. Our Dillsburg store has a very high ticket average because we have the Low Bar. If you know Low Bar, the construction company, they're a fleet customer of ours, and they have a lot of trucks that take more than 5 quarts, and so their ticket averages are a little bit higher. Your Sprinter vans probably take 8 quarts, so they would be a higher ticket average, things like that.
Okay, very good. So I was thinking of 3 locations. I was hoping to do that. Can you talk to me about just kind of that process? I know I have to get approved, obviously, and I'm not trying to jump ahead of that. But what's that process look like? Timing of first store versus second store, third store, and how's that all work?
So we have you had a GeoStrategies call? Who's your rep, Michael?
Sierra
is okay. Has she had a GeoStrategies call with you?
No, we had our first initial phone call. She said we do these weekly meetings. I said I will be there. So no, we've only had 1 phone call.
We have a gentleman named Michael Tilbrook who I think does most of the GeoStrategies calls. So GeoStrategies is a company that we utilize for data on territory management and territory mapping. And so we do a 3-mile or 50,000 person radius. In a place like Houston, where you can throw a rock and hit 50,000 people, you're going to get a 3-mile radius. Whereas in a place like, Lidditz, which is probably, I'm guessing, 15,000 people, your radius is going to be 50,000 people. So it might be a very oddly shaped map. And so the GeoStrategies phone call typically helps you kind of target where you want to look and what your territory would look like. how long it takes to get open is going to depend on if it's a conversion of an existing store. So like if we were able to acquire the Pit Stop Quick Lube on Lincoln Highway, then it's just a certificate of occupancy, getting some contractors to change the signage and the imagery, and then you could be open within 30 days. If it's something like a new construction, commercial real estate right now is not exactly the fastest, because you're dealing with a lot of bureaucracy in terms of getting a new building put up, digging out a pit, things of that nature. And we've put in place as many options to try to give the least amount of resistance to our model. So we don't have a fully open basement like Jiffy Lube and Valvoline does. So we haven't been getting a huge amount of resistance to our pit. There's been some towns that have made us modify it here and there, but our pit itself is a self-contained unit, so it hasn't been as difficult. We're working on a secondary product right now to insert. We're going to call it the oil change platform. It's not really ready to be rolled out, but I figured I'll share it with you on this call, where basically it's an elevated pit that you can lay inside any facility and basically turn any facility into a quick lube. And so that will make getting open faster. But I believe that we've extended the time to 14 months to account for commercial real estate. You wouldn't want to, obviously drip out 3 stores over 30, 40 months, whatever that would come to. But sometimes it just comes down to availability of inventory, and then also just how good the town is. We're building a store right now in outside of Charleston, West Virginia, in St. Albans, and we just had to call the guy. We called the office, and there was only one person in the office, and he has unilateral authority to approve commercial real estate. And he was like, he's like, that's great, let's do it. And we're like, oh, okay. Like no hearings, no board meetings, no conditional use permits. It was just like,
amazing.
This guy's like, yeah, let's do it. But then we're building a store in Eaton, Colorado, and Eaton is, they're like, the siding has to match the rest of the shopping center, and there's all these deviations to our plans, and that's not. I mean, I could see Lidditz being somewhere like that, especially now that they have such a big head about being on every list for the best town for Christmas in the country.
Very good. So once the store is open, how long does it take to kind of get up to their max run rate? If the revenue is going to be $400,000.
That's a great question, because a lot of people overlook the fact that this business has a ramp up period. I use the pizza as an analogy, because if you open a pizzeria and you have the best pizza on day 1, the people who come in there can eat there day 2, 3, 4, and 5, the same people. If you open up a oil change shop and you give the best oil change that someone's ever had, that car does not come back for 3 months, no matter how good of a job you did, sometimes longer. And so there is a ramp up period that has to be. That's why in our item 7, we allocate, a large portion of it to working capital, because there is a ramp up period, and it does take time to get the store to where it needs to be. We believe that, through our marketing methods and our fleet training, that we can get you to mitigate that ramp up period. Valvoline, which is the only publicly traded company in our space, has said in prior keynotes that they viewed the ramp up period to be about 3 years. I believe that we can get our stores ramped up in 9 to 12 months. Not all of them, and not always, but for the most part, if you follow our model and our methods, we get people in the door very quickly, and then the word spreads pretty quickly. And then, the store will have good cash flow by month 9, because that's basically 3 oil change intervals, and then they start to overlap. And when the oil change intervals start to overlap, it becomes exponential, and then it becomes very reliable and predictable income. It's not sales based, where once you make the sale, you're back on, trying to sell the next guy. It becomes a self-fulfilling thing.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Well, it sounds like there's a bunch of other phone calls. I know Sierra mentioned, so she mentioned the territory mapping exercise and a few other steps. So I think I'll follow back up with her, and I'm excited to keep the process moving.
Cool. If you ever want to stop by the office, we're here Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You can see our warehouse. We have a lot of private label products that are pretty cool that no one else in our space is really doing besides Valvoline. Valvoline is really the only vertically integrated company in our space. So, Mike, I've got a call coming through. I got to take. I'm sorry. Did you have any other questions?
No, sir. Thank you
All
very
right.
much for your
Hey,
time.
have a great rest of the week.
Take care. Thanks, Costa.